think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years.
The camera cuts to complete silence. No applause, no laughter, no cards rustling. Just her Whoopi Goldberg eyes, flickering lips, quivering, gripping the table. As if it's the only thing preventing her from falling apart this time, the pressure isn't from a teleprompter. It's coming straight from the courtroom. I respect everything everyone is saying to me. And I don't want to fake apologize, I was very upset about that. People are misunderstood. What I was saying, she's not on The View anymore, tossing out jabs wrapped in humor, or serving up sass like it's gospel. No, this time she's at the center of a legal battle that's got Hollywood buzzing to reason. Karoline Leavitt, that's right, the young fiery conservative who's been rising to the ranks, unapologetically disrupting the game, just flipped everything on its head instead of throwing out a snarky tweet. She took it straight to court and dragged Whoopi along for the ride, and the evidence brutal. What started as a typical daytime TV spat quickly escalated into a full-blown legal circus, subpoenas, statements, and tears flying everywhere, gone with the tough words, the audience, applause, the usual banter. Whoopi, she's not just sweating, she's unraveling. Before everyone's eyes, and trust me, this courtroom drama, it's not just a mess, it's historic. It all kicked off like any other View episode, a circle of bold co-hosts, a controversial guest, and one too many thinly veiled insults disguised as conversation, but this time the guest was Karoline Leavitt, and the shade, it came quick and sharp.
It's not good for anyone, and it's not good for poor folks. It is not good for y'all because you become slave fodder. It's not a good thing. It's not good for women because you are now being told and dictated to, and you can't say anything because they, throw you in a jail or whatever. People got very, very, very angry and still are angry. I mean, I'm getting, all of the mail from folks and the very real anger because people feel very differently.
People got very, very, very angry and still are angry. I mean, I'm getting, all the mail from folks and the very real anger because people feel very differently. It all kicked off with Joy Behar tossing a jab like a dodgeball, mocking Karoline's political rise, and imply it was all based on her looks. Then Whoopi chimed in, rolling her eyes and dismissing her success as nothing more than wokeness at play. And of course, Sonny couldn't resist, brushing off Karoline's entire career as a case of white privilege playing dress up the audience. They ate up claps, laughs, smug nods all around. But Karoline, she didn't flinch, she didn't scream, didn't storm off and huff. Instead, she went quiet, took a deep breath, locked it all in. And then days later, boom, legal papers dropped, hitting harder than a surprise album drop. And what did those papers say? Defamation, career damage, malicious intent. She went straight for ABC's jugular legally and publicly. This wasn't just about politics. This was personal. Karoline didn't just clap back, she turned the tables. And now Whoopi isn't the one holding court, she's in one. And this time there's no commercial break to save her. While most celebs would shoot off a quick IG story or fire off some tweets, when drama hits Karoline Leavitt, she played a different game, quiet, calculated, and lethal. She didn't rant, she documented every smirk, every sarcastic jab, every eye roll that went down on live TV. She collected the footage, the sound bites, even the offhand comments meant to humiliate her.
If you don't have anything to say, you blab. You just go on and 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 on.
She dropped a legal bombshell, locked and loaded. Karoline unleashed a lawsuit so massive it dominated headlines from coast to coast. $800 million. Yeah, you read that right, $800 million. And she didn't just go after Whoopi Goldberg. She named them all: Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin. Even ABC itself, no one walked away unscathed. The accusations: brutal, systematic character assassination, relentless slanderer, calculated media takedown aimed at silencing any conservative bold enough to step into their arena. But Karoline wasn't playing a victim. She came out swinging. Her legal team statement sent shock waves. This isn't about politics. It's about accountability. No woman should be publicly destroyed for daring to think differently. And just like that, the lawsuit became more than a legal battle. It turned into a cultural war.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay,
now, as
I'm
for
sorry,
this
guys.
debate,
We're going to come back out to the panel. Karoline, thank you very much for your time.
These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right. ABC should wake up.
Fast forward to this week, packed courtroom tension, thick in the air, no cameras allowed inside. But the report spread like wildfire. Whoopi walked in oversized shades, on lips pressed tight, face unreadable. She tried to keep it together, but that didn't last long. The moment Karoline's legal team started presenting their case, everything shifted. Eyewitnesses say Whoopi visibly flinched when the first video played clip after clip showed her mocking Karoline. Her intelligence, her accent, even taking cheap shots at her appearance. It was ugly, and it hadn't aged well. Then came the bombshells, emails, internal memos, texts from producers who allegedly knew exactly what they were doing. One message suggested letting Karoline squirm on air for the ratings. Another flat out joked about how it would drive engagement. Chilling.
They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right. ABC should wake up. They just paid $15 million to President Trump's future library. That's a great thing for the American people.
Sources say Whoopi turned to her attorney, whispered something inaudible, then dropped her face into her hands. She stayed like that for a long moment during recess. She wiped away tears. This wasn't the usual unshakable Whoopi the courtroom saw. Something different. Someone rattled. And the trial, it's only just begun. From stone-faced icon to visibly shaken, defending her transformation, wasn't just surprising, it was stunning. Audiences had watched her dominate debates, fire off sharp comebacks, and hold her ground through controversy. But in that courtroom stripped of the spotlight, she looked like someone who just realized the camera doesn't always cut away. Across from her, Karoline Leavitt sat in stark contrast. No smugness, no theatrics, just quiet, unwavering composure, hands folded, eyes steady. She wasn't there for spectacle. She was there for justice. Her presence alone made a statement. And then came the evidence, not a handful of cherry-picked clips or hearsay Karoline's legal team brought. Everything, months of raw footage, full transcripts, segment rundowns, internal production notes. They had timestamps, metadata, and a mapped-out pattern of targeted remarks. This wasn't occasional criticism. It was sustained, deliberate effort to belittle, discredit, and reduce her to a punchline. Then came the document that turned the whole room ice cold, a leaked internal memo allegedly instructing producers to lean into her youth push, her off balance early, and essentially tear her apart for the sake of ratings. Legal analysts in the room barely hid their reactions. Some sat in stunned silence. One was overheard whispering.
Whoopi Goldberg, who raised a few eyebrows using the Bible to support the idea of kids getting gender change surgeries. Take a look.
This is a party that says we believe in parents' rights. You're telling me that as a parent, I'm not smart enough to decide if my child and I need to have gender affirming. Our doctors are not involved. What is going? So I can't decide what my kid reads. I can't decide for my child what my child says is going on. You're telling me your beliefs, and they keep saying it, and I keep saying, what Bible are you reading? Because God was really clear.
Very clear.
This wasn't just commentary, it was coordination. That phrasing alone sent shock waves to the courtroom, because there's a big difference between hosting a heated debate and crafting a calculated takedown, documenting it, and executing it live on national television. When pressed about the leaked internal notes, Whoopi's response wavered. She reportedly claimed she was involved in every production detail and had no knowledge of how the segment was framed, but that excuse didn't land, not even close. Karoline's attorney wasted no time. Without missing a beat, they turned to the judge and stated flatly, ignorance is not a defense when you're speaking into a microphone heard by million silence. The entire courtroom froze. People glanced at each other as if struggling to process what they had just witnessed. Whoopi's expression went rigid. Her lips stopped moving. She blinked rapidly, but didn't utter another word for the rest of the session. Meanwhile, behind the scenes at ABC, chaos erupted. Insider sources say network executives are in full damage control mode, reviewing Whoopi's contract, pulling in legal consultants for emergency meetings, and conducting frantic risk assessments that do not look promising. The network, once unwavering in its support with hosts, is suddenly reconsidering its options. Can they afford to keep Whoopi on the air with a scandal this massive? Can The View even survive this kind of firestorm? It's no longer just one lawsuit. It's a full-scale reputational crisis. Advertisers are reportedly pulling out, backing away quietly to avoid PR fallout. Internal emails reveal brand managers scrambling to reassess their association with the show, and the numbers, they don't Live viewership has plummeted since the lawsuit broke. Once loyal fans are questioning everything while new audiences aren't tuning in for laughs. They're watching a real-life legal drama unfold. And ABC's PR team's silent, no statements, no press, releases no attempts at damage control, just radio silence. And sometimes silence, as more than 1,000 words behind closed doors panic, is setting in contingency plans are being whispered about. Temporary host replacements, emergency strategy shifts, even the possibility of suspending the show entirely until the dust settles. But let's be real, dust doesn't just settle in storms like this, it leaves wreckage. And right now, Whoopi's legacy is sitting squarely in the eye of
voters. Do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help.
Whoopi Goldberg used to be untouchable, the queen of clapbacks, the no-nonsense powerhouse of daytime TV, the one nobody dared to challenge. But now her name is practically radioactive. Insiders at ABC are sounding the alarm, saying the network isn't just planning an exit strategy for Whoopi. They're going full DEFCON, even considering pulling the plug on The View entirely. That's how deep this goes, according to multiple sources. Executives are scrambling, drawing up worst-case scenarios, and preparing for the unthinkable. What happens if Karoline Leavitt wins this case? Because if she does, this isn't just about one lawsuit. At the media earthquake, legal analysts are already calling it a potential landmark case, one that could rewrite the rules on political commentary, guest treatment, and media accountability. And inside the courtroom, the contrast between Whoopi and Karoline is staggering. Whoopi, once a force of nature, now looks shaken. Emotional distress, her legacy hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt is rising like she was built for this. No theatrics, no anger, just composure, precision. In fact, people expected her to be defensive about her depth. Instead, she's proving she's there to set the record straight. And the internet has taken notice. Social media is on fire. Platforms that barely mentioned Karoline before are now flooded with her clips, quotes, and courtroom updates. Hashtags like Justice for Karoline Media, accountability, and Stand with Karoline are trending everywhere. Even some of her past critics are stepping back and saying, you don't have to agree with her politics to see she was disrespected. Because this isn't just about Karoline anymore. It's about every guest who's ever been invited onto a show only to be ambushed for entertainment. And Karoline, she's standing in the center of it all, unshaken. But what really sets her apart is how she's handling it. No sob stories, no emotional outbursts, no playing the victim. Just receipts, months of raw footage, transcripts, internal emails, production notes, evidence that paints a chilling picture. This wasn't spontaneous. It was orchestrated. And that's what's shaking the industry. Because if Karoline wins, it opens the floodgates. It tells every public figure who's been ridiculed under the excuse of entertainment that they can fight back. Networks would have to rethink everything, how they frame segments, how they prep guests, and just how much control hosts really have when the cameras roll. This trial isn't just about Whoopi and Karoline anymore. It's about power shifting. And Karoline, she's not just a part of it. She's leading it. So what happens next? That's the $800 million question. If the court rules in Karoline's favor, Whoopi isn't just facing a hit to her reputation. She's looking at career reset. We're talking possible forced apologies, multi-million-dollar damages. And yes, the real possibility of being removed from The View. Insiders say network executives are already sweating, sponsors are pulling out, and ratings tanking. But beyond the courtroom drama, something bigger is happening. A line has been drawn. Karoline Leavitt didn't just fire back. She fired with legal power. She sent a clear message. Having a platform doesn't make you untouchable. You can't just disguise personal attacks as opinions and call it journalism. Not anymore. If she wins, this could change the entire playbook for live TV panel shows and political interviews. For years, certain personalities dominated the conversation with sarcasm, smugness, and zero accountability. Karoline just challenged that system, and she did it with evidence, not outrage. This might just be the beginning of a new era, one where talk shows can't operate like ambush arenas, and media giants actually think twice before turning interviews into public beatdowns. The days of hiding behind laughter tracks and studio applause, they might be over. And if so, Karoline Leavitt will be the one who flipped the